All right, final video for these notes. I'm going to do 13 and 14 here. So 1 plus 3 sine 4 theta is equal to 1. Okay, we want sine 4 theta by itself, so I'm going to subtract 1. We get 3 sine 4 theta is equal to 0. Divide by 3, we get sine of 4 theta is equal to 0. All right, so we have 4 rotations. That's a lot. It's okay. We're going to adjust our domain. We're going to multiply both of those endpoints by 4. So 0 times 4 is 4, 2 times 4 is 8. So our initial answer should be between 0 and 8 pi. And then 3, we're going to solve. Okay, so sine inverse of 0 is equal to 4 theta. All right, so where is sine 0? If you think about the graph, this is what it looks like. Sine is 0 at 0, sine is 0 at pi, and sine is 0 at 2 pi, but we're not going to include this endpoint because it's redundant. So my two answers here are just going to be, I'm going to do this over here so I have room, 0 and pi. So that's first rotation. Second rotation is going to be to add 2 pi. So 0 plus 2 pi is 2 pi. 2 pi plus pi is 3 pi. So the 2 pi does not get included on our first rotation because it gets included on our second. So just, yes, we included it, but it's included in our second rotation instead of the first. So another one, we get 4 pi and we get 5 pi. And then last one, we get plus 2 pi, 6 pi, and we get 7 pi. All right, so all of this is equal to 4 theta. All right, and all of those answers are between 0 and 8 pi, so we're in good shape. Okay, so final step, we're going to set all these to equal to 4 theta and solve for theta. So 0 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, 6 pi, and 7 pi is equal to 4 theta. Looks great. Divide everything by 4. And simplify. 0 divided by 4 is 0. Pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, which is pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which is pi, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, which is math, 3 pi over 2, and 7 pi over 4 is equal to theta. Those are our answers. All right, we get 1, 2, 3, we get 8 results here. So looks good. All right, and finally our last one, root 2 over 2 is equal to cosine theta over 4. Cosine inverse of root 2 over 2 is equal to theta over 4. Let me set up our situation now. So we actually have a quarter of a rotation. All right, a theta over 4 is a quarter of a rotation. So I'm going to divide everything by a quarter. So 2 divided by 4 is going to be 1/2. So all of my answers are going to be between 0, oops, this should be pi over 2, not theta over 2, 0 and pi over 2. All right, so we're not going to get a whole lot of, we shouldn't get a whole lot of answers here, so just be aware of that. All right, so cosine inverse of, oh, we already wrote this. I'm sorry, I'm like way backwards on this problem. All right, let's solve this. All right, so cosine is root 2 over 2 at your pi over 4s, and it's positive in the first and in the fourth quadrant. So it's positive in the first quadrant, and that's going to be pi over 4. Sorry, I'm like distracted a little bit. I apologize. And then the second quadrant, it's going to be 7 pi over 4. Now, if we look at our domain of what we are restricted to, we are only restricted to between 0 and pi over 2. So my answers here, I actually don't get this 7 pi over 4. It doesn't count because it's not between 0 and pi over 2. So the only answer I get is this pi over 4. All right? We don't get the 7 pi over 4 because it does not follow in our domain. All right? So, and it's a quarter of rotation. We don't need to do anything else. This is all that we have. So the last thing I'm going to do is just set pi over 4 equal to theta over 4. And we're just going to get theta is equal to pi. All right, and that would be our answer. So once again, quarter of a rotation, that means I'm between 0 and pi over 2 for my solutions when I solve in 3. So if I solve for root 2 over 2 in the first quadrant, that's pi over 4. I actually don't get the fourth quadrant because my domain, it goes beyond my domain. So 7 pi over 4 is out, all right? And we just take the 0 over, we just set that equal to theta over 4, and then we would get theta is equal to pi.